Garden Warfare, the third-person multiplayer hero shooter spin-off of Plants vs. Zombies, the cartoon tower defense phone game, is a series that has absolutely no right whatsoever to be as good as it is. So when I tell you that Garden Warfare is consistently one of the best third-person shooters out there, you are well within your right to be skeptical. This game looks like a joke. It's an idea so bizarre and weird that it seems absolutely destined to fail. And yet, I have consistently sunk hundreds of hours into these games. Alone, you think I can convince any of my friends to play these games? Tough luck on that front. I've gone back to the latest entry, Battle for Neighbourville, to grind out that last achievement, and let me tell you, it's a grind. But it has gotten me analysing this game, this series, on everything that it does right, and the things it does wrong, so I made a video about it. It's this one. You're watching it right now. Also, you might be wondering why I'm all dressed up for a video about Garden Warfare, and the answer to that is, it's 10 months into quarantine, and I'm really bored. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare must have been one of the hardest sells imaginable back in 2014, but I think they did pretty much everything right. This isn't a perfect game by any stretch, but it's a silly idea executed so well that it just seems correct. Even the name, Garden Warfare, is such a stroke of genius. It's an obvious parody of Modern Warfare, even down to the design on the cover, but it's just such a ridiculous thing to say that it immediately conveys the tone that you should expect going into the game. Garden Warfare. Garden Warfare is a team-based hero shooter. It wasn't breaking any new ground even at the time. TF2 was still king in that regard, but it's an extremely well-polished version of that familiar format. The first Garden Warfare follows the same structure as the original game, meaning that plants are always on defense and zombies are always on offense. There's a couple of game modes where it's an even playing field, but the core game modes are Gardens and Graveyards, a massive assault and defense-based push across extremely large maps, and Garden Ops, a horde mode meant to emulate the original game. Because of this, the teams don't actually have your traditional balancing. The Plants team's abilities are much more defensive in nature: barricades, mines, traps, hunkering down and becoming a turret, and the zombie abilities are much more offensive, a lot of abilities based around getting in there quick and dishing out lots of damage. So while you could say that both classes have the assault, healer, support, heavy combo, within these classes is a world of difference. The All-Star is a mid-range tank with the most health in the game and a mix of highly aggressive and defensive abilities, while the Chomper is an assassin with no ranged weapons and an instant kill from behind or below, followed by a short recharge. The Engineer is a mid to long range fighter with a grenade launcher and abilities mostly focused on distracting and disrupting, while the Cactus is a long range sniper with claymores and barricades for hunkering down and taking well placed shots. This willingness to let the teams be so functionally different is, I think, what makes the game quite so replayable. There aren't 4 different character classes spread across both teams, there's 8, all with completely different styles of play, a number amplified into absurdity with the inclusion of class variations. These don't change quite as much as you still have the same core abilities and movement, but they bring so much spice and flavour to the game, allowing players to really fine-tune and get exactly what they want out of a class. Take the Pea Shooter for example. You've got your classic elemental variations, fire, ice and toxic. These trade off as slightly lower base damage for an elemental after effect. With toxic and fire that's straight damage, but on ice it's a slowing effect. After that though, all of the others are changes to how the Pea Shooter's primary weapon actually functions. The Agent Pea trades splash damage for pinpoint accuracy. The Cosmic Pea trades the regular cannon for a chargeable blast cannon. The Commando Pea gives you a completely worthless machine gun. These changes are often enough to make a class play drastically differently, which means even if you're always playing as one class, you can still be having a very different experience in every match. When it comes to replayability, the biggest drawback has to be the lack of map variation. There was a whole 3 Gardens and Graveyards maps in the game at launch, with 1 more added as free DLC along with nighttime variations of each. However, the saving grace is that at least these maps are pretty good. At least the Gardens and Graveyards maps anyway are designed in a very clever and thought out way so that no matter what team you're playing, it feels like the enemy team has the advantage, which means when you finally overcome that plant defensive line or keep your ground against the impossibly large waves of zombies, it always feels like a well-earned victory. I always find trying to describe why something is fun almost impossible. It's good, it's solid, it's smooth. The noise the pea shooter makes, it's just, endlessly satisfying. Satisfying might be the right word in general. Despite most of the weapons in this game not actually being weapons at all, everything sounds and feels great. Every weapon feels so weighty and hits with a mighty thud. And that Vanquish noise! That is the noise of validation. The sticker book also serves that satisfactory goal, albeit in a different way. It's a completionist's dream, filling in all the character stickers and their upgrades and extra abilities. Pretty much all of this is based on loot boxes or sticker packs, but they are surprisingly generous with what they give you, especially for an EA game. They're also very obtainable without spending real money, with an average of one of the expensive packs every 3 to 4 games of Gardens and Graveyards. They also have that satisfying explosion of stuff in the way loot boxes do. I don't like loot boxes. I don't like what they're psychologically designed to do. But I'll confess, the sticker packs in this game are probably the least predatory, most user-friendly loot boxes I've ever seen. And in an EA game, no less. How does that happen? Was it the Chester Cheetah Chomper? Do you know how many Chester Chompers I'll take over the monetized hellscape we live in today? There's so much love and care on display here. Take how the game looks, for example. A phenomenal job was done translating the cartoony 2D characters of the original game to full 3D, a transition that 9 times out of 10 leads to absolute disaster. The game has its own distinct style from the original game, but it also reads so clearly as the same. It really is impressive. The design of the world is great too. The strange, exaggerated architecture and natural shapes make the whole world feel cartoony and fun. The game still looks excellent even 6 years later because this heavy stylization is in a sense timeless. And that ties in with the most shocking thing of all. I can still play this game. Oh, sure, the servers are a bit sparse, but there's still enough to get a full lobby going. People are still playing this game after all this time because it's really good. It's a sad truth that any multiplayer game has an expiration date, but that expiration date can be put off by a long time if the game is fun enough to keep people coming back. But in truth, what's really amazing about people still playing this game is that Garden Warfare 2 exists. Garden Warfare 2 is what we call a safe sequel. It's exactly, down to a T, what you would expect from a sequel to Garden Warfare. New character classes on each team, bigger maps, an inversion to the Plants Defend Zombies Attack format, and a couple tweaks and changes to balancing to make everything flow better with the new additions. Here's the thing though, those expected changes are enough to propel this game into God tier status. I'm not kidding, this is a 5-star game. One of the only multiplayer games I'd be comfortable rating as such. What this game really masters in its gameplay and its level design and its intention is that feeling of pure controlled chaos. Battles in this game feel insane, explosions everywhere, bullets flying all around, and yet everything is so clear and colourful, you very quickly learn what everything is and what's good or bad. This is a crazy and chaotic world, but you can master it. I've never played a multiplayer shooter that has so perfectly captured that feeling. Overwatch is certainly colourful and creative, but it never reaches the levels of 24-player madness that Garden Warfare 2 does. Something like Halo, where games can reach into those numbers of players, are much bigger and much slower. Garden Warfare's maps are big, but they're condensed. The action is always close by, and there's always a lot of it. This effect, I think, is in large part due to the excellent level design. I mentioned while talking about the first game that the levels are designed in a way that no matter what, it feels like the other team has the advantage. Well, here let's analyse that in more detail. Let's look at the first capture point of Seeds of Time, one of my favourite maps in any game ever. The first capture point is the entry of the park. In a typical fashion, the attackers, in this case the zombies, have 3 paths to the capture point: left, right, and centre. The centre initially seems like the dumbest choice as it leads directly into the line of fire, but the centre route is not a direct path. The centre also makes a split early on to pass by this decorative bridge thing, which can be used as cover and as an elevated position for attackers or defenders. To the left and right are possible spawns for the teleporter, which can be built by engineers. The randomness choice of where it spawns is important as it keeps things fresh on which side of the arena is being predominantly used. Further on the right side is a sniper position overlooking the capture zone. If the zombie teleporter is also on the left, then this is an ideal position to set up and get some vanquishes. However, since there's only one way to get up here, if a few cactuses can set up shop first, this staircase can actually become more trouble than it's worth with all the mines and barricades. That generally means this area in particular becomes a smaller little battleground away from the capture point. If the zombie teleporter spawns on the left, then the primary battlefield will be around this large archway outside the building. This teleporter is a lot harder to defend as it has multiple points of wide open entry, which can also lead to the zombie attackers becoming the defenders instead. This area has an elevated bridge that can only be accessed by foot soldiers and pea shooters, meaning it can't really be used by snipers, but it is an excellent place to gain a quick advantage. The real trick is that since the fight is usually focused on one side of the map, it's often a very good idea to sneak around the other side where the plants will have less defences. That sniper tower on the right has probably got a couple cacti chilling, thinking they're safe. Be a shame if something happened to them. The capture zone itself is also very cleverly positioned. It's very open, able to enter from all sides, but it's also slightly lowered from the surrounding area, making it an absolute little kill bowl if you don't have a strong enough group to take it. This is all fairly typical level design stuff, but it's done to an extreme science. What makes it all work is how condensed it is. You're never more than a few steps from the action, so the game keeps you constantly engaged. There's no sigh and a long trek as you walk back to the battle. Everything happens quick and fast, despite, or maybe even because, the game doesn't have a sprint button. The game is both slow and fast. That's quite a trick to pull off. I confess, the scientific level design isn't the reason this is one of my favourite multiplayer maps ever. It's because it's so goddamn gorgeous. There's so much artistry shoved into every single corner of this arena. These posters, this map, this giant wizard statue, and this is just the front gate. Every section of this map presents a completely different, fully realised environment. Caveman times with its volcanoes and lush green environment, into ancient Egyptian ruins with statues carved to look like zombies and secret Indiana Jones side passages. Then Asia, then Rome, then medieval England. It's just one of the coolest concepts for a level I've ever seen, and it's executed with so much care and attention to detail. There is a complaint to be had about this game's lack of maps, but when maps are this good, I honestly couldn't care less about playing them 100 times over. Garden Warfare 1's maps were still good, but they were all quite samey, and they all had at least some kind of shackling to reality. Garden Warfare 2 throws off those shackles and just goes all in on incredibly intricate and artistically brilliant maps to fight through. Great White North is a great break from all the greens and browns of the regular palette, while Zomburbia and Zombopolis are excellent inversions of it. The idea of this suburban area for zombies to live in is so odd and interesting, and it gives the whole game this utterly strange vibe that I just can't get enough of. And of course, we've been through time, we've been to the North Pole, we've been to a dystopian mirror world. Where else to go but the moon? I should at least touch on the new character classes. Each team gets 3 new recruits plus an extra added a decent time after launch, and they're all great. Well, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the Torchwood or the Hoverglow, but the rest, let's talk. Obviously, given that some of the maps now invert the plants defend, zombies attack format, the teams need to be rebalanced to be more even. So zombies get Captain Deadbeard, an answer to the cactus, Super Brains, an answer to the chomper, and the Imp, an answer to the pea shooter. And plants get the Rose as an answer to the engineer, the Citron as an answer to the all-star, and Kernel Corn as an answer to the foot soldier. Except, just like the first game, if you actually look closer, these are not perfect matchups, which I think is great. The way the game accomplishes this is that it draws from roughly the same pool of abilities, but distributes them across different types of character. For example, both teams have 2 characters who can hunker down and become a turret. In the case of the plants, it's the pea shooter, a general frontline fighter, and the sunflower, the healer. On the zombies, these abilities are given to the engineer, the support builder and disruptor, and Captain Deadbeard, the sniper. This is by no means a universal rule though, and generally every character has at least one ability unique to them. Like the Imp, Oh, the imp. How do you get away with making an entire character that's just an elaborate reference to Titanfall and still have it be genuinely fun in its own right? Even better than that though, class variations are back, and more than just changing weapon effects, every variant of imp has their own completely unique mech with different weapons and abilities and even health pools. That is just an insane amount of variation for one class. Garden Warfare 2 is also notable for using a positive reward feedback loop system to keep you playing the game that isn't based on trying to take your money. Every 2 days, the challenge board is updated with a wide array of challenges, each of which gives you a small reward and a peg. Every 5 pegs or so, and your XP multiplier will increase. But if you miss 2 days, the pegs will start to disappear, so you're encouraged to keep playing so you can keep your multiplier going. As far as I can tell, there is absolutely no monetary motivation behind this system other than a gamble that you might buy a sticker pack, and I just find that really strange and noteworthy. The weirdest part of the game by far is that it has a story mode. More than that, it has partial open world exploration with collectibles and chests and secrets to find. And it's actually way better than it has any right to be. The story is kind of forgettable, but the secrets and the collectible hunting are surprisingly engaging, especially when we get to the gnomes subplot. The story of each side ends with you getting in a big mech and entering Infinity Time, a pocket dimension home of an endless horde mode against an entirely new enemy type, gnomes. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of Infinity Time as a concept, but I love the gnomes. They are the peak of silliness. The true threat of this universe isn't the zombie invasion, no. It's interdimensional evil garden gnomes. That's just fantastic. Trials of Gnomes expands this element of the universe and really has PopCap flexing their level design chops, with each of the trials being a truly unique and interesting challenge, with the final reward of 2 characters that are kind of meh, no one really uses anyway, but still, a new character is a fair reward. Garden Warfare 2 is a perfect storm of game design. Sure, it might have a couple of useless character classes, and the occasional child screaming full volume into their always-on microphone, but really, what game doesn't? It's a game that is just endlessly enjoyable. There's no pressure to be the best or frustration when you get taken out, because it's just a few short steps back to the action again. Have I gushed about this game enough yet? Probably. Okay, are you ready to end on a sour note? Battle for Neighbourville is a game I have a lot of mixed feelings about. As a game, on its own, with no other caveats, it may well be the best of the 3. It's got the most fluid combat, the best balancing, it has a sprint button. As a sequel to Garden Warfare 2, well honestly, it doesn't even hold a candle. Battle for Neighbourville feels like a very refined version of the Garden Warfare format, but it's refined in that way that a lot of the fun, a lot of the charm has been ground down to make place for a very refined, very polished, very well done product. Battle for Neighbourville feels like what I was expecting back in 2014 when I heard EA was publishing a multiplayer shooter based on Plants vs. Zombies, a shallow yet well-made product designed to take money from children. I'm being harsh, but let me explain. I talked about how Garden Warfare 1 had the best loot box system I'd ever seen in a game. Lots of stuff, very easy to get without paying any real money. I didn't touch on it in Garden Warfare 2 because it works exactly the same. For the same price as the expensive sticker packs, with money earned at the same rate as the previous games, you can get 1 item per spin. And let's face it, most of it is trash. Most of it is trash in the previous games too, but at least it's a plentiful amount of trash. Here there's so much faff and so much flair for what will 9 times out of 10 be an ugly emote that you're never going to use. But hey, what's this over here? This shiny shop with the big signs and glowy lights, positioned right in the centre of the hub area. Look, it has all these nice fancy cosmetics for rainbow stars. Well, back in Garden Warfare 2, rainbow stars were earned during weekly events. Maybe they work the same here. Oh. EA is often characterised as the big bad when it comes to greed and money grubbing in video games. And honestly, I don't think that's fair. Granted, I don't play any of the sports games, but in my experience, EA may have kickstarted this era of gaming, but the students have long surpassed the master. This kind of thing is baby food compared to what you see in Fortnite. And of course, part of me knew this was coming, all good things and all that. I wish it wasn't the case, but that's the world we live in. This game has lots of other problems that I want to talk about, but they're game design problems. This see-through greed and money grubbing is the real issue here, and it is prevalent in modern gaming. Let's get back to that idea of refinement, because I think it shows up quite a bit. The biggest, most obvious, and quite frankly most upsetting removal is class variations. I vividly remember when I first played this game, my brain actively refused to believe that this was true. I started coming up with a whole bunch of rationales. Oh, I'm just being dumb, I can't find the right button. Oh, this is an early access beta, maybe they just haven't added them yet. Maybe you need to unlock them first. Then after playing for a good few hours, I realised the truth and was quite befuddled indeed. Battle for Neighbourville does technically have enough variation. It's got 9 full classes on each team, plus 3 more added as DLC. But with the removal of class variations, it's lost so much flavour. The class variations added a lot to that controlled chaos of Garden Warfare 2. You weren't just dodging bullets, you were dodging fire, toxins, lightning, sonic waves. There was this feeling that everyone on the battlefield was unique. Even if you were fighting 4 pea shooters, they were all distinct opponents. That feeling is gone now. Victim 2 is my precious level design. The wild and crazy levels of Garden Warfare 2 are gone in favour of a return to the aesthetics of the original game, which on some level I understand. The wildness of Garden Warfare 2's levels would have been quite daunting to beat, so they opted not to try. That's not to say things aren't still weird, like launching a lighthouse rocket or shooting a gigantic flag into space, but the majority of these levels are just city, suburbs, canyons. There isn't that compelling randomness to the different sections of Seeds of Time anywhere to be found. But these levels are also designed in a very different way. They're noticeably bigger, and it's all because of that sprint button. Because what a sprint button is a license to make things bigger, to make the distance between where you spawn and where the action is longer, because hey, you can run now, which means that feeling of constant action is gone. If you die, you've got to jog back into the fight. This might seem like a minor point to just spell out like that, but when you go straight from Garden Warfare 2 into this game, it's something you notice immediately. You spend significantly longer getting to the fight than in previous entries. And if you run in just to get hit by a sniper, you're spending a lot of your time running. And this isn't Death Stranding, there is nothing fun about the journey. They've also taken it as a license to make the hub area just bigger, to make everything just far enough apart to be annoying. Battle for Neighbourville seems to have taken a lot of cues from Overwatch. There's a much larger focus on payloads over the traditional stream of capture points, but a payload means that your objective is constantly moving further away from the spawn, which is why you need a sprint button. The other change is that the buildable teleporters are gone, which means that the space of variety I explained earlier is gone too. There's still the left-right-centre split on most map areas, but the battlefield is always directly on the objective. There are no smaller battlefields created by trying to destroy or defend the teleporter, and in another vein it also makes the Rose and the Engineer much less compelling to play. Let's pivot to the character classes for a second, because they are quite the mixed bag. Plants get the Acorn and Oak, the Snapdragon, the Nightcap and the Wildflower, and zombies get the Space Cadet, the Electric Slide, the 80s action hero, the Wizard, and the TV Head. The problem they have now with adding new characters is that all of the core roles on both teams have already been filled. What now? Well, you just add more, right? Plants get another assassin with the Nightcap and another frontline fighter with the Snapdragon, and zombies get another sniper with the 80s action hero and another frontline fighter with Electric Slide. The outliers are the Space Cadet and the Acorn, both of which are based on a Voltron-esque gimmick power of transforming into a larger form and combining with other players. You might see a problem with this. This character is most effective when playing with other players, so if nobody else is playing it, then there's no point in playing it, so now nobody ever uses them. Oops. Or at least, normally nobody ever uses them, but when I went to record footage, the new monthly character challenges had come out, and Acorn and Space Cadet are both on there, so, just take my word for it, yeah? I haven't splashed out the cash to get any of the new characters, but from what I can tell, the Wildflower and the TV Head are pretty much identical, which is the exact thing I praised the last games for avoiding. They have the same stats, the same kind of weapon, and carbon copy abilities. And then the Wizard is another support class a la Rose. You've probably noticed by now that the art style of this game is a wee bit different to the last two. It's more obvious on some characters than others, but but there is a shift into a more cartoony vibe. I'm not a fan. I'm not going to say that the previous games were more realistic looking, because obviously they weren't, but the style in the Garden Warfare games is a bit less clean, a bit more grimy, a bit more odd looking, which I think fit the series perfectly as an out-of-place shooter about plants and zombies. Take the pea shooter. The new one is definitely cuter, but it also looks a bit more generic. It has a bit of a Pixar vibe to it now. The original is in a world of its own. It kind of seems like a visual change for the sake of a visual change. It's not an improvement. I've been harsh on this game, so let me pivot to the one part of this game I actually really enjoy. The single player. Back when I was playing the exploration parts of Garden Warfare 2, I often thought it was good enough to be its own game. Somebody clearly agreed with me, because Battle for Neighborville has 3 explorable hub areas full of random and wacky stuff to do. One for plants, one for zombies, and one for both. I think ultimately this is why the sprint button is in there, because these are big areas and you want a fast way to move around in them. And these areas are genuinely worth exploring. This is where they've been hiding all that expert level design. These hubs are jam-packed with secrets and goodies. They're both big and compact, so there's stuff to find around every corner. It's the part of the game where that feeling of satisfaction finally rears its head again. The town centre is pretty generic as the setting goes, but the other two are much more creative. Mount Steep is a cowboy land meets a zombie cheese factory / volcano, which is delightfully weird, but my absolute favourite is the Weirding Woods, a zombie factory that has been absolutely decimated by the woods, which are in fact alive. I think it's the first thing in these games that actually feels genuinely creepy as you see these trees burst through the concrete like drills, and you get this overwhelming sense that this is not a safe place for you to be. The gnomes are back too, this time hiding around in secret locations for special challenges that are genuinely a challenge. With some really intricate puzzle work, they may well just be a wee bit too smart for me. I have a confession to make. I am not part of the Plants vs Zombies community. I've never watched any of the YouTubers, of which there are many. I've never joined any fan groups. I just play the games. So I have no idea what the reception to this game actually was, but I have to wonder, is pivoting the game in this direction what the fans actually want? I mean, I certainly appreciate it, but it seems like this should be the weird afterthought and not the main focus of the game. Garden Warfare started life as a silly multiplayer shooter and has evolved into a strange hybrid of multiplayer shooter and third-person puzzle exploration game, and that is a weird shift if ever I saw one. But maybe that's the core of why I enjoy these games. They are delightfully weird, and they go in directions you could never predict. Battle for Neighborville may have been a disappointment for me, but it's still a game I've sunk a significant chunk of my limited time on this earth into, so take that however you will. Just EA, less blatant money grubbing in the next one, please. That's all I want. Actually, you know what? Put more blatant money grubbing in it. Make it as see-through as physically possible. When you do this stuff well, nobody notices it. When you do it this blatantly, you start training your audience to notice it. And that has to be a good thing, right? I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Don't buy shiny cosmetic items from EA. You'll just encourage them. But if you can get over that hurdle, you should play Garden Warfare. It's a series that's worth your time. And I guess so am I. If you like this video, press the like and subscribe button. Just smash those 2 buttons. Just really wallop them. Just go to town on those 2 buttons. As I was playing, I was like, okay, I'm starting to analyse this, but just because I've got nothing else to do, so I ended up writing a video, which I'm currently working on, and then as I was writing, it's like, well, I may as well go back and play the other 2 as well. You know, it's useful to have points of comparison. And going back to the previous games, I was just thinking, wow, these ones are way better. Why is that?